Right, Thursday was a huge day for Celtic. Of course, we've appointed Ange Postecoglou as the club's new manager. That will rightly take the vast majority of the headlines amongst the Celtic support, Scottish media, etc. However, it was also a pretty big day for another high-profile figure at the club. Yes, of course, we're talking about Dominic McKay. We know what he sounds like. Yes, Dom McKay did his first interview since becoming Celtic chief executive. At least I think it's his first interview. There's been that much going on over the last couple of months that I may have missed it. I don't think so though. I think it's certainly the first time I've heard what he sounds like since he's been at Celtic. He was on the end of the video the club put out. I think it was a 15-minute video, maybe the first 8 or 9 minutes with the new manager Postecoglou, and then the rest of it with Dominic McKay. Interestingly enough, Celtic pointed out right at the start of the bit with Dom McKay that he doesn't formally start until July the 1st. I thought that was very interesting considering some of the protests and the fact that Dom McKay was actually on a Celtic banner, the greatest honour of the lot, earlier in the week. I thought it was interesting Celtic pointed that out. But yeah, Dom McKay gave a bit of a insight into what he's been doing at the club over the last 4 or 5 weeks. He says that it's his job to pick everyone at Celtic up and to take the club back to where they should be and enjoy more good times. He says he's been speaking to as many people as possible at Celtic over the last 4 or 5 weeks, loads of different departments, finding out where their struggles have been recently, but also where the opportunities lie going forward. He calls Postecoglou an outstanding leader and an outstanding manager, and then he went in depth on he and Postecoglou having a shared vision at Celtic to modernise the club both on and off the pitch. I think Dom McKay used the words modernise or modernisation about half a dozen times in that interview. It's clear that that is something that's right at the top of his list. Dom McKay comes across really well in this interview. He clearly knows how to put a sentence together, unlike the man you're looking at. He knows the buzzwords to use that have daft YouTube vloggers like me doing videos and going daft. Modernisation, visions, all those kind of buzzwords that Celtic fans and any football fans will love. But it will come down to what Dom McKay can actually achieve at Celtic. Talking the talk is one thing, you've got to walk the walk as well. You would think now that the Postecoglou announcement has been sorted that Dom McKay would be able to kind of sit back a little bit, ask the tea lady at Celtic Park to make him a sandwich or something like that, and he could stick a box set of Line of Duty on the telly and enjoy the rest of the week. Sadly, there's no such luxuries will be afforded to him because we are less than 6 weeks away from our first Champions League qualifier. It's going to be a tough one. We had an interesting debate with me and John earlier on in the day about how much we can expect from this first round qualifier, given that it's going to be against either Rapid Vienna, Midtjylland or Galatasaray. I'm kind of going between two schools of thoughts. The first one is that 6 weeks really isn't very long when you consider that our manager's the other side of the globe. He'd have to come to Scotland, quarantine, sign players, train players, get players buying into his way of playing, which is something that is going to be very different from what they've experienced last season. It's going to take a little bit of time for players to buy into this and to adapt to Postecoglou's way of playing. That's something that's been apparent in a lot of his different jobs. So 6 weeks doesn't seem like a lot of time with regards to that. But then the other part of me is thinking you can actually achieve more than you'd think in 6 weeks. If we get the ball rolling as soon as possible and get players signed as soon as possible, as the clubs say they will endeavour to do, then I think we could still get through that first round qualifier. I really do. I think it's still achievable. You look at that current Celtic squad and there are a lot of players who have underperformed over the last year, probably longer. But I don't think you can underestimate the effect it could have bringing in a new manager with fresh ideas. I think there's still good players in that squad who can come good and can come good very quickly with a bit of new drive, and a bit of added motivation that perhaps wasn't there for whatever reason last year. But yeah, I did find the stuff from Dom McKay and modernisation really positive. It is, as I say, something that not just me, but basically every Celtic fan has been calling for over the last, not even like the last year when the team's been struggling on the pitch, but for years and years, we feel we haven't been told what's going on at the club. We've had to find out from tabloid newspapers, while other clubs in Scotland, namely Rangers and Aberdeen, have exclusive interviews on their YouTube channels with their chairman and their chief executives and their director of footballs. There is no reason why Celtic can't do this if other teams, lesser teams in Scotland can. A few months ago, the idea of having a manager in prior to a director of football would have been pretty unthinkable, but that's the reality we have now. My main fear now is that Celtic panic with this role, and we give this role to someone who isn't the best candidate for the role. I'm not going to name names because it's probably not fair to castigate someone who hasn't even been linked with the role and probably won't get the role. But I do hope that it's not someone who's already at the club. I do hope that it's not someone who's been at the club in the past. I think the director of football role has to be someone coming in from the outside who can modernise Celtic. Fergal Harkin, looking from the outside, would have been ideal. David Webb, who I spoke to on the channel probably about 4 or 5 months ago now, is another perfect option. Someone who comes from the outside with a blank canvas and no preconceptions about Celtic or what Celtic should be like, and comes into the role. I really hope Celtic do this. Similarly with the backroom team, I think it has to be a fresh, modern approach. And I don't know what that means for Gavin Strachan and John Kennedy, two people who have been part of a failed regime last year. Given that Celtic were so public in allowing Eddie Howe the chance to bring in his own backroom team, I really don't see how they can't allow Postecoglou to do the same. Now, who he brings in is up to him. Obviously, Dominic McKay will have a say in that as well. But this idea that Postecoglou will be brought in and will then have Strachan and Kennedy foisted upon him, that just can't be allowed to happen if we're to go down this modernisation as Dom McKay talks about. The days of giving the job to someone who's easy, someone who's already at the club, or someone who's Celtic minded just can't be allowed to happen anymore if we're to align to this new vision that Postecoglou and McKay apparently share. So well done, Dom McKay. Well done for speaking out today. Hopefully it becomes a semi-regular occurrence and we certainly hear far more from you than we did your predecessor. You speak about your job over the last couple of months since you've come into Celtic in terms of having to pick up the people at the club. Well, the support are badly in need of picking up right now. The Postecoglou appointment is a positive thing, but I think we need to see far more change at the club. And talking the talk is one thing. We need to start seeing things changing. I know you don't formally start as your own man until the 1st of July, but there are certainly plenty of opportunities for you to get us all feeling good about things ahead of the new season. It's time to get to work, guys.